Lucius Fitness Podcast, where we talk about strength training, nutrition, faith, family, and how all those things work together for parents like you and me. My name is Coach Jay, and today we're going to be talking about the role that discipline plays in your fitness journey. And that role may be smaller than you think, and that's great news because discipline sometimes rubs people the wrong way. So, before we get into our topic today, let's go over our verse of the week, and that's going to be straight from Jesus, the man himself, from the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5, and we're looking at verses 13 through 16. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. There are so many things that this passage makes me think of, and this is a very, if you have grown up in church or been around church people, that this is a pretty familiar passage, this illustration of being salt and light. Um, Wow, what a powerful call to action from Jesus here. That saying that we are the salt of the earth and we are the light of the world by being His people, by putting our faith in Him. We are those things, and we need to use those things. We need to use the qualities of salt as being a preservative, as being a flavorant. We need to use that light and not to bring light, not to bring attention to ourselves, but as that passage ends, that others would see our good deeds and glorify God in heaven. And that is a beautiful call to action, and is a very big encouragement of recognizing that we've been given value, we've been given talent, and we need to use that and not for our own glory. So that's the encouragement that I would leave you with today. So let's get into our topic. Today's topic is discipline is overrated, but not useless. So discipline tends to bring along with it a connotation of hard work, of battling, of grinding, of hustling, and these are not bad things. And discipline itself is a very good thing. We are called to be disciplined in many areas of our life, and discipline has its place even in just worldly aspects of our work and our families and all those kinds of things. That discipline can be a very good thing, and in some circumstances and for some people, discipline is easier than it is for others. But discipline in and of itself is a good thing. And we're talking about this today in terms of your fitness journey, in terms of your goals. And by the time that this episode comes out, this will be right around as we gear up for the new year. And discipline tends to be where a lot of people start. They go, okay, I am going to be an entirely new person come January 1st, or whatever it is, but that's relevant to this time of the year. I'm going to become an entirely new person. I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to cut out all of these things. I'm going to start adding in all of these other things, and all for the sake of trying to make progress toward whatever goal it is. But in this case, let's say a fitness goal. And discipline is a good thing, but it does make for an unsustainable foundation. It is not a good foundation upon which to build the entirety of your your identity, or even what it is that you're trying to make progress in. Discipline is good for getting started. There is definitely a time and place where you need to, in a sense, fake it till you make it, and that's my hot take in this episode. And you can let me know if you agree with this or not. But there is definitely a time and place to fake it till you make it, especially at the beginning of a let's say your fitness journey as a whole, or maybe you're trying to work on a new goal or trying to make progress in across different metrics. Wherever you are, that it can be a good place to get started in a different trajectory, a different direction. But it's not going to carry you very far beyond that, beyond getting started, because it just requires this continual willpower and this mental and emotional effort that is just not going to be a fun ride along the way. When it comes to fitness, there's plenty of value in reaching your goals, but there's also plenty of value in the journey to reaching those goals. There's plenty of value in making progress, and that's why I tend to try to highlight both results and getting results, but also making progress, and that there's a ton of value that can be found in both of those. And if you are just grinding and hustling your way all the way through the journey in order to get to the destination, that you are going to miss a lot along the way. And that is not a I have not seen that, let me say it this way, in my coaching practice, I have not seen that be a very sustainable or enjoyable route to reaching your goals at the end of the day. And that continual willpower, that is just, if you've experienced that, especially in your fitness journey, where it takes not only a concerted mental and emotional effort, but also a physical effort to be able to do that too, in your workouts themselves, in trying to wake up, 2 hours earlier, or stay up 2 hours later, or going right from a full day of work right into a workout, all those kinds of things that can work for some people, but is not, certainly are not the, hard and fast rules of fitness, that it can be exhausting to be able to try to be able to continually exercise your willpower, fighting against what would otherwise be natural in your schedule, in your lifestyle, and your priorities. And so, uh, that is not going to be a great way to just continue on from one day to the next, from 1 month, 1 year to the next. From a spiritual perspective, we need to recognize right off the bat that we cannot depend on our own strength alone. And this is something that comes up, obviously, from this spiritual perspective, but recognizing that we are spirit first, and that is going to infiltrate everything else that we do in our lives. And so, trying to keep up this spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, continued willpower that is just beyond anything that we could muster up on our own, that is not going to be a great approach to reaching your goals. And certainly, if you do manage to reach your goal, whatever it is, that you may have missed some really important and valuable things along the way. So, what do we do instead? Rather than just relying on discipline in its entirety for the entirety of our journey, we can rely less and less on discipline and more on these four things. I'll list them out, and then we'll explore them a little deeper and give an example of each after that. So the four things that we can, and what I would suggest we should rely more and more on, are principles, systems, habits, and the Holy Spirit. So let's go through those. Principles. This is all about keeping the bigger picture in view. So, when it comes to your fitness journey, you might look at this as your principles, you might look at this as your values or your priorities. You need to figure out your why behind what it is that you're wanting to do. So, you can start with your goal of whatever it looks like, but you need to figure out why that goal is actually important to you. Because if you don't have a clear picture of why it's important to you, as soon as your willpower runs out, as soon as things get challenging, or you feel like you're not making progress at the rate that you were expecting or hoping for, you are likely going to not have anything as a good foundation to fall back on. And so, your principles and values and priorities right from the beginning is going to be a great place to start to help get that bigger picture in view, so that you can then zoom in on the more actionable, tangible steps that you can take, which that leads us into our second thing here, and that's going to be systems, relying more and more on systems. This is a pretty popular buzzword in the fitness and habit change community, and for good reason. Systems are all about making your best option the most convenient option. Quick side note on this here, let me give you an example of what this looks like. So, this is a matter of making your best option your most convenient option, or you can flip that and looking at, if you have a specific obstacle in mind, that making that obstacle the least convenient option. So let's just say that you have a specific food item in your house that you know that if you have it in the house, that you are going to eat it in its entirety without restraint, no self-control, and that it just happens all the time. Let's just say something like that is going to be a donut, for example. In our house, we don't eat donuts often, but all four of us love donuts. So if donuts, not that they are the enemy in and of themselves, there is plenty of room for having a donut in your diet. But if having donuts in the house, if you have a dozen donuts in the house, and if you know that as soon as those are in the house, that you are just going to go crazy on those, and that you're just going to polish those off all in one sitting or over the course of a day or two, and without restraint, and it doesn't match your goals, and you kind of get the picture here, then we need to figure out a way to be able to make that a less convenient option. So that could be very simple. That could be something as simple as putting it out of sight, so it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind, putting it behind something in your pantry, putting it on a higher or lower shelf than eye level. Those can be some really simple ways that I've used in my own house, as well as encouraged clients to be able to use in their own fitness journeys as well. But if that's not enough, then maybe a system that you could have is the fact that you don't keep them in the house, but that you, if you decide that you do want to go get a donut, that you make the effort to go to the store to get a donut, and you come back and you're good to go. You've got your donut, and you attach that action with the inconvenience of it, of okay, this was inconvenient to be able to go out and to be able to get this treat, but that's okay. I had to make a decision. I had to make many decisions along the way to be able to decide that this was going to be worthwhile in doing that, rather than just going for it because it's there and it's available in your house, in your pantry, whatever that looks like. So the idea of making systems is to figure out what it is that you're trying to do, and making those options, making those actions as convenient as possible. And on the flip side, if there are obstacles or things that continually hinder your progress or continue to hinder making or getting results, then figuring out how to make those more inconvenient or less convenient. So systems are a big part of where I spend in my coaching with my clients, is figuring out, we start with their principles, and those may change over time, but for the most part, that's going to stay fairly consistent throughout your fitness journey, especially if you're kind of in the same stage of life of from one point to the next. And so you are going to be focusing a lot on the system side of it, of okay, we know what our values and principles are. What kind of systems can we put in place to be able to make these things convenient or make these things less convenient? And from there, we finally get to the point where a lot of people start, and that's going to be the habits side of thing. This is number 3, habits. And this is all about reducing the amount of conscious decision making and willpower, while still allowing for flexibility and freedom within your, not just your training and your fitness, but just again, bigger picture, drawing it back to your values and your principles, of the bigger picture of what it is that you're trying to do and how that fits into your overall life and lifestyle. So habits are all about this reducing the friction, reducing the conscious decision making and willpower. If you've ever heard the phrase decision fatigue, this is a very popular notion in, again, in the habit change and the behavior change community. And the guy that gets cited a lot for this is going to be Steve Jobs. And if you can picture Steve Jobs wearing his black turtlenecks and his jeans and the same outfit, you see him in the same outfit for many of his talks, many of his TED talks, many of his public appearances. And one of the things that we draw that back to is making one less decision each day, and in that case a decision of what to wear. And this is in the fitness side of things, this is why a lot of people such as myself will eat the same exact breakfast every single day, the same exact or similar lunch every single day, the same snacks, we have the same groceries on hand. And that's that idea of making fewer conscious decisions, so that, and by having those same meals, those similar meals, same snacks, same groceries, things like that, those are the systems, and the habits are what get produced from that. And that's just the fact that my habit is that I know that I have a protein shake every single morning for breakfast, and that's pretty simple, it's easy, it's one less decision that I have to make, it's one less place that I have to spend my daily allowance of willpower. And so that is a great place to get to, is these habits, this habit formation, rather than starting with habit formation. You can't just decide to have a new habit on day one. That's not quite how that works. So habits are a big part of this process here, but it's not the end goal. The end goal, again, is still looking at why it is that you're doing all of this in the first place, and that it's okay to have flexibility and freedom within your habits. And that's part of the benefit of having a habit, is that when you divert from that for a meal, a training session, a day, a season of life, that you know that you can, in a sense, get right back on track, because you've never really you left the track, you've not lost your way. Whereas if you don't have those habits solidified in the first place, that's where you can feel like you're constantly in that analogy of, getting off the track and then getting back on, and getting off the track and getting back on, because you are continually trying to start. And the habits allow you to maintain that momentum no matter what it is that's going on in your environment and world around you. So you can have that flexibility and freedom when you are simply not able or willing to follow that habit for a vacation, for a family get together, for you name it. Especially as parents, you know that our schedules require tons of flexibility because it's not just about us anymore. It's about our kids and including them in on it and prioritizing them and their schedules. And even just think about how much a sick child can throw a disaster into your plans for the day or for the week. This is where having habits is so helpful because you don't have to feel like you're constantly getting thrown off the rails by something like that. And number 4 is the Holy Spirit. And this may feel a little bit out of place at first glance from this very tactical, very hands on approach that we've looked at so far. But we need to recognize that God's wisdom and perspective are both far greater than our own. And we'll talk about what this kind of looks like in a second here. But recognizing that we don't have all the answers and that, again, that no amount of depending on our own strength is going to take us anywhere. It may feel productive in the moment. You may even see some what appears to be progress or results. But again, at the end of the day, that it is going to be meaningless if we don't not only include God in on it, but that if He's not our starting point, that's not going to be very helpful. So let's look at an example that takes into account all 4 of these: the principles, systems, habits, and the Holy Spirit. Let's start with the goal. And this may be a relatable goal to you again, especially in terms of where we are in the year at the time of this recording. But let's say that starting or following a strength training program is your goal. Maybe you have some kind of sub goals that go beyond that of wanting to work on a certain muscle group or trying to strengthen a certain joint or whatever it is. But let's just say that the goal itself, and this is I always love to break down client goals into something that is actionable and not just results based. Results based would look like something like I want to be able to bench press a certain amount, or I want to be able to lose a certain amount of weight. But that is going to be dependent on all of these other things that we're about to talk about. So that doesn't make for a very good starting point. And so in this case, we're gonna a goal should be something that you can decide to do. You can't just decide to lift a certain amount of weight or to lose a certain amount of weight. Rather, you can decide to start a strength training program or to follow a strength training program. So that's going to be our goal in this example. And let's say, from a principal's point of view, that you want to make decisions that support your goal. And so this goal is going to be, again, the goal is to start or follow a strength training program. And maybe you have those sub goals of wanting to build strength or build up some confidence, or you want to improve your health across some metric. These are all great things, but these are going to be your principles. These are going to be the things that kind of guide you along the way to go, okay, am I making progress toward my goal, or am I just being busy and feeling like I'm being productive, but not actually making headway toward the direction that I'm trying to go? From a systems point of view, this is where you put together your plan to overcome those obstacles. For in this example, that might include finding your ideal schedule to train, having a predetermined workout plan, and that's a big one because a lot of the time, if you have not had a solid approach to how you work out or how you progress from one workout to the next or one training block to the next, that you end up spending a lot of time kind of just pandering back and forth between one program and the next, between one machine and the next at the gym. You take a look at it, and when in my years of working as an in-person trainer, I can totally imagine, I can recall people that their entire workout was dependent on what machine was open on any given day. And so they had very little plan aside from just doing a set or two that felt mildly challenging on any random open machine, and then that was it. That was their workout. So having a predetermined workout plan, whether it's something that you've put together yourself, or if you have a coach, or if you're doing a group program, whatever that looks like, that can be such a big way to be able to overcome this obstacle of not knowing what to do, when to do it, how hard to do it, how to do it, all those kinds of things. Finding accommodations for your kids, of recognizing, okay, uh, you have kids now, and as a parent, and it's not just up to you to be able to go train at midnight if that works best for what would have worked best for you prior to kids. That was my story in college. We had a lot of late night workouts, and that worked out great. That doesn't work out so great now, having two kids. And so making accommodations for your kids and recognizing that, okay, what if not that your kids are an obstacle, but in a sense, if it were up to you, you might choose something different for your schedule. But the fact that it's not just up to you, you have to go, okay, we need to take that into account. We need to look at, okay, what am I going to be doing with my kids? Is that going to be having them involved with it? Is that going to be during nap time, getting a workout in, whatever it looks like? So those are kind of be some of the things that you have to think about when it comes to the systems that you have in place. One other thing that might come up here as far as systems go is a plan to deal with non-adherence, and this looks like when you are, again, whether by choice or just by circumstance, if you are not able to stick with the habits that you're trying to build or your typical schedule, or stick with the systems that you've tried to put in place. If you have a sick child, for example, I bring that example up a lot because that happens a lot in our house where our kids get sick, and then that drastically changes our work schedule, that changes our my fitness schedule. And so having systems in place to plan with and to deal with non-adherence to the schedule, to the plan. So this might look like figuring out what you're gonna do to pick back up. If it feels like starting over, then looking at, it's not going to actually be starting over from square one every single time. You're just gonna pick right back up to where, you left off, and you can adjust your goal, adjust your plan accordingly. From a habits perspective here, so we have our principles in place, we have our systems in place that have been based off of those, and now as we work on sticking to the systems that we've put in place, we are now developing habits. And like I mentioned at the beginning, that habits may take discipline to get started, but it becomes easier and easier with time. But it's not just the fact that time is passing, it's the fact that you are working on building consistency in sticking to those habits. It's the fact that, and this is a big one, I don't want to understate this, that making progress, whether it's progress in consistency, if you are just more consistent with your systems, if it's making progress toward your goal that you started out with, making progress is a great way to reinforce that these small wins add up time after time after time, and that is going to help overcome this idea of needing to rely so much on discipline. Because when you start seeing progress, you start thinking, okay, what am I doing that is working, and how can I continue to do that? How can I do more of that? How can I be more effective with that? How can I be more efficient with that? These are the kinds of things that you start to go over, and that start to become a little bit easier, a little bit more natural as you go further toward your goal. As far as some of these habits that might derive from your systems, this might look like swapping an hour or so of your screen time with an hour of gym time or workout time on your workout days. That's a big one. If you recognize how much time you might spend looking at a screen, whether that's at night after dinner, that's kind of our routine. Is after we put the girls down, we'll eat dinner and then we'll watch a show or a movie or something like that. And again, not that that's a bad thing, and it certainly isn't in our case because we've built systems around that. And if it is an obstacle for you in your life and your fitness journey, then that's where you look at, okay, what do I really value as a principle? What kind of systems do I need to put into place? And how can those things develop into habits? And so that might mean making some hard and fast swaps and cuts in your schedule of going, okay, I spend an awful lot of time doing this. That's not really that important. Maybe something like screen time, racking that up. And maybe this is where I can get my workouts in. Maybe it means setting out your workout clothes the night before. That's a big, simple tip that you're probably going to see a lot as the new year starts, but that can really work. That can really help, especially if you're getting in an early morning workout. And if that's something that is an obstacle to you, then why not take the 2 minutes that it takes to set that out the night before so that you don't even have to think about it. It's one less decision you have to make the morning of. From a nutrition perspective, maybe it's setting out some time and energy and some thought to be able to do a weekly meal prep. And maybe you don't have any specific nutrition related goals at the moment, but you know that when you eat better, that you are going to feel more energetic and feel better prepared to be able to do your workouts, and that's going to encourage you to eat better. And then it kind of starts this positive cycle that way, this positive feedback loop. And so that's a really great, some really great examples based off of our idea of if you're trying to start or continue following a strength training program. And then last but not least, certainly not least, this is the biggest one. This is going to be relying on the Holy Spirit here. This looks like looking to the Lord for His strength and looking for opportunities to use being healthy and having a strong body for His glory, His benefit. And that kind of ties right back to our salt and light at the beginning here, of thinking about how can we tie these ideas of being salt and being light into our fitness, and that our fitness is not just for our own vanity, it's not just for our own self-confidence, it's not just for our own ability to be able to have, great health. And the further I've gotten into my fitness journey, the further that I've tied fitness to healthiness, and that turning being healthy into a full body, full person health, not just physical health of how I look and feel, but a matter of how can I use that as a tool for my spiritual health and my spiritual devotion. And so that's a great way to look at that. And then tying all of this to priorities that are higher than your fitness. And that's something that if being fit and being healthy is your be all end all, that recognizing that there will be a day where those will fail you. And whether that's progressively or if that's all at once, that any kind of injury, any kind of, long term diagnosis or something like that, not good things in and of themselves, but if those are what you're worshiping as your top priority, that is going to fail you at some point. And so that's why we look at these principles and we go, okay, why are we doing all of this to begin with? And how does that tie into our calling as disciples and disciple makers, as parents and as people? So, looking to the Holy Spirit for guidance in these areas is uh, of utmost importance. Um, Even if you don't feel like you're starting at that point, that is, He's going to be there throughout the whole entire journey with you. So those are our four, what we're aiming to rely more and more on, and in place of discipline. And again, discipline is, to tie it back to our title here, discipline is overrated because it's not going to carry you the entire journey. However, it's not useless either. And sometimes it can get conflated that discipline is useless, and that, because discipline is not sustainable, that we should just throw it out entirely. And I would argue, as a coach and from my coaching philosophy, that is not a great way to go about this. So we can look at discipline as a tool, but it is not the tool. It is not the only tool. It's certainly not the only tool that you're going to need to carry you through from one season to the next in your fitness journey. Moving on here, from a personal and family update side of things, nothing too crazy going on. Kind of on the personal side of it here, from a Blue Shoes Fitness side, if you've been tracking along on social media, that we just started our new Strong Shepherds training block, and man, it has been so much fun. I'm running out of time here, so I won't blab on about this, but I've gotten some great feedback from the first training block, and there's just a small handful of us that are running through these workouts and building up this community. But it has been so life giving and so exciting to be a part of it and to be, leading that. And wow. Yeah. I don't have any specific notes on this here other than the fact that we started it and that I'm just super excited about it. It's been great to get some good feedback on that. And I feel like with each successive training block, that's just going to continue to get better and better. So we just started this recently, and each training block is 5 weeks. And so every 4 or 5 weeks or so, I'll be putting out some calls to action of saying, hey, we're going to be starting this new training block, get on board if you want to join. It's certainly never too late to join, but it does probably make the most sense to be able to join when we all get started, because we all want to be on the same page together. All right, I'll leave you with all of that. Thanks for checking out today's episode of the Blue Shoes Fitness podcast. This is where I'm going to continually ask you for feedback on the podcast, for topics of future podcast ideas, et cetera, et cetera. So you let me know what you think that you want to hear on the podcast next, and I'll leave you with that. So that's it for today's episode. I'm Coach Jay, and thanks for hanging with me, and we'll see you next time.